Hello, everyone, and welcome on now day 21, reading the 40 chapters of Exodus for the 40 days of Lent. And so, for me, it's running late even where I'm at 7 o'clock. And for you all, it's after 8 o'clock. And so, but the good night's sleep was definitely worth the tardiness of this video, for me at least. So we're starting the second half of Exodus now. What had been laid out in the previous chapter was the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments, and now here we have further legal matters that are being attended to. I'll say this at the onset. One of the challenges when reading the Hebrew law is a variety of things. One, some of it is religious law, but even within the religious law, some of it is liturgical law, a proper order of worship. Some of it is a law in terms of purity, and some of that purity is moral purity, and some of that is ritual purity. The breaking of ritual purity did not make someone morally unclean, although to some in later traditions, like the Pharisees, they thought it did. So we've got liturgical law, we've got purity laws, both moral and ritual purity, and there's also civil law, because remember, what has prompted all of this is Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, who has told him, you've got to better organize these people. Well, at that time, now they're ready for a law, and a civil codes. So one of the challenges in the Christian paradigm is determining between this Jewish civil law, liturgical law, ritual purity laws, and moral purity codes, what is applicable to us today and what is not applicable to us today. Because I don't know anyone that thinks all of the laws are applicable to us. However, the challenge is who determines and by what method do they use to determine what laws are applicable. Okay, so start chapter 21 gives us some good examples of this. If you have a Hebrew slave, the slave is to serve you for 6 years, but the 7th year the slave goes free. If he came in by himself, he's going to leave by himself. And so it's kind of, if he came in with a wife, then his wife's going to go with him. If he was married while he was a slave and had sons and daughters, the wife and children still belong to the master, but he, the slave, can go free. Okay, that's part of the law. Down in verse 7, if a man sells his daughter as a slave, there's certain restrictions and requirements there. She doesn't get the same rights exactly like a male slave would have. And so on. There's this legal coding about how to handle slaves. Then it comes down to personal injuries, starting with verse number 12. There's a difference in murder and manslaughter, intentional, premeditation, and accidental. And so, the death penalty is applied accordingly. Here, there's laws for kidnapping. There's laws for treating father or mother without respect. that there's laws about if two people get into a fight. There's laws about if a man strikes his male servant or a female servant, and that female dies. Um, and so it's a series of situations. If a man fights and hits a pregnant woman, and her child is born uh, prematurely, then but without serious injury, the one who hit her will be punished in according to what the woman's husband demands of him, and pays what the court will decide. But if there is serious injury, then you'll give life for life, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and so on and so forth. And if a man strikes the eye of his male servant or female servant so that he destroys it, he will let the servant go free as compensation for the eye. And it goes on, it's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And so here, this is quite the civil law here. It's not religious law. It's not moral. Law in the sense of religious morality. It's civil law. Not that these things do not play any bearing on how we understand God and God's in certain theological developments, but I think that these things we can separate and distinguish into civil law, because the people were living under a theocracy, not a democracy, and so they would not have seen the distinction between civil law and religious law as we would. To further example this, it continues into the animals. If an ox hurts a man or a woman and the man and woman dies, then the ox is going to be stoned and it cannot be eaten, but the owner will be acquitted, except if the ox had a habit of this and its owner was warned, but the owner did not take necessary precautions and then it kills someone. The ox is going to be put to stoned. It's going to be put to death, as well as the man is going to be stoned as well. If a man opens a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or donkey falls into it, the owner must repay the loss. He must give money to the owner, and the dead animal will become his. Presumably, then it can be used for food. The animal can be skinned, and a variety of things can be used. All right, so with this chapter, it's quite interesting and quite telling where things are, and the principle here continues here at the closing verse. He must surely pay ox for ox, and that goes along with eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and a variety of consistencies in this chapter that things must be met in kind. So we continue to see the formation of group identity by way of having a law. That's the hallmark of a civilization, right? That they have laws to protect people, protect damages, and have punitive rulings. And so once more, it's this is interesting as we start this part of things through law. That we distinguish here the civil law from the liturgical law, from the moral law, even though morality is in ethics or in this law. Obviously manslaughter and murder and things of that nature. I don't think that we as the church are to expect that this is how this is what we are to put in place in terms of our religious law. And it's interesting that, when Jesus comes along and, he says, you've heard it said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This is what he's referring to, this section, and as well as others. But he goes on to say, but I say to you, and then he gives a law that is much more sacrificial and surrendering, that foregoes punitive opportunities and goes into one that's more into grace. Okay, we're now almost 11 minutes in. I'll let you go, and I'll meet you again tomorrow. Thank you.